Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is Thursday morning, 5:30 in the morning here in Calgary, Alberta, March 18th. I'm so happy to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. We're on for about 15 minutes, and I have my chat room up if you want to go sit in there and hang out here. That'd be great. This is a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And it's so good to be here, just to keep getting some information out to people, and I learn as well as I'm going along. And it's just great. So I'm glad you can be here. We're gonna continue with the article that we've been working on and looking at all week, and that is Understanding Crisis. And I found it at www.childwelfare.gov. That's the Child Welfare Information Gateway, and they're all a bunch of public publications on there that you can pull up and download all kinds of information on there regarding child abuse and all the issues surrounding it, and CPS and whatnot. And this is Understanding Crisis. I wanted to take a look at it because I knew there was an intervention done in our family when I was really young, and I just thought it'd be interesting to take a look at what families go through during this time. Because I was so young, I don't really remember too much of it. I have some vague memories, but my mom was telling me all about it, and over the years, because she was always complaining about my dad, so in order to make my dad look really bad, she would tell me about all this stuff, right? So I thought, well, I'd like to see for myself, kind of what happens when there's an intervention done by CPS, and how the family is supposed to cope and how it's supposed to go, and which it didn't go in our case. So it's Understanding Crisis. You can pull it up by just typing or looking in the letter U on that website, www.childwelfare.gov, and it's all done by alphabetical letters. So you can type in U for understanding, and you can bring it up, and if you wanted to follow along. And we're looking at crisis intervention teams today. Yesterday we were looking at the 9-step. It was called the. Let me just get that for you. We were looking at a 9-step crisis intervention model, which was pretty interesting. All the 9 steps involved, from the very start of it, step 1 to step 9, which was the follow-up. When it's all over with, in the case the crisis workers are done. So it's quite interesting. Today we're going to look at crisis intervention teams, investigation, psychological first aid. We'll see how far we can go. And it's not a professional show. I don't hold any professional counseling certificates or therapy certificates. And, I just ask everyone listen at their own discretion. The topics of abuse can be very sensitive, and if it's something that's going to bother you, please turn the show off, because you won't be hurting my feelings at all. And if you're a young person listening to this show, please make sure you have someone listening with you, because I fight for child rights, and I fight against online predators, and I really fight for child online safety. So you'd be doing yourself a favor and me by getting someone to listen to this show with you, and that way if you have questions and maybe concerns, and you're feeling like you just don't understand what I'm talking about, you'll have somebody there that can help maybe explain things a little bit, and also they'll be able to help you get more information that could kind of help you, right? So I think it's a great idea, and I sure hope you have a parent that cares, but quite often we don't. And so, maybe you could find a school counselor or a teacher that you really like and trust, and or a mentor, coach, someone in your life who can sit down and listen to one of these shows here, just to see if it's something you should be listening to. So we're going to get right into it. I'm just going to read right from the page, and this is called Crisis Intervention Teams. It says, in cases involving child abuse or neglect, there is frequent misunderstanding about the differences among investigation, psychological first aid, and rehabilitative crisis intervention. Each, however, plays a critical role in a team's response to child maltreatment. Ultimately, rehabilitative crisis intervention skills can significantly enhance investigative or psychological first aid approaches. So investigation, that's the first part. The purpose of the investigation is to determine whether child abuse and neglect exist within a family reported to the CPS agency, to interpret the agency role, to determine whether the family will benefit from further intervention, and to assess whether there is a risk that future maltreatment will occur. As noted in an earlier user manual, and that's called Child Protection Services, a Guide for Workers, intervention should be timely, limited, and to required procedures, and terminated when it is determined that continuation is unnecessary or when services are no longer required. Whereas emergencies should receive immediate response, Non-emergency situations can be contacted within 24 hours and can usually take place in the child's current residence. On the basis of the CPS investigation and case assessment, crisis workers must decide if the case warrants continued intervention. At this point, crisis workers may need to use crisis intervention techniques. A removal of the child is not the primary objective, but rather the alternative, if intervention fails and the child cannot be protected in the home. So I guess they say here that, they don't want to remove the child unless they have to, because it's really the alternative. So if intervention fails and the child cannot be protected in the home, I guess that's when they go ahead and remove the child. And it's just so important to report child abuse, whether if you suspect child abuse. That I know myself, even myself, I'm talking about all of us, right? Anyone suspects child abuse. Really, we need to do the right thing and report it, because we see so many cases in the paper every day of children being killed and murdered at the hands of their caregivers or parents or some sort of sexual predator that's gotten a hold of them. And, it's just terrible. We need to change this. And the only way it's ever going to change is if we get involved, And I'm not just talking about you. I'm talking about me and everyone else, We all need to step up and get involved in some way in our communities to strengthen our communities, to strengthen our families, like even our own families, right? That's where it has to start to stop the abuse, right? Really, it has to start in the home. And, I wish my parents would have got some help. I wouldn't have liked to see my family go the way that it did. And that's just the whole issue. That's why I'm doing this, because, I'm not out trying to bash my parents for what they did. I have a lot of issues I'm working through because of it. But the thing is I loved my family, and I had an opportunity to actually have an intervention done. A family was willing to go to the police and help me out. And I didn't want to go because I didn't want to be thrown out of my family, because I knew I was the last child at home. And my brother was an older young adult at the time in the home. And my sister was 5 years older than me, so she was 18 years old. So I would have been the only one removed from the home, and my mom wanted to throw me out anyway. Because that period of time in my life, my mom was telling me that she didn't want me, and that she wanted to put me in a home, and she just hoped that I would leave, and she didn't want me around the house. So I felt really bad, and I thought, no way, I'm not getting thrown out. I mean, nobody else in my family had been thrown out on the street, and I thought, here I'm her daughter, I'm her last baby, and for her to just want to throw me out, it really broke my heart. And so I was determined to hang on to that family, as much as it was a horrible situation. I think that was the mentality behind it. That was the psychological effects of the years of abuse that I had taken from my mom, and I didn't want to be the only child to be thrown out of the home and placed into a home, because really we should have all been removed from the home from day one. But the thing is, it didn't happen. So this is the sort of thing that can happen to people, right? And it is very, very hard on the children, and the children pay the price for this, right? The parents, they are adults, and they're supposed to make the right decisions for their family. And so the caregivers, they're supposed to make the right decisions for themselves and for their family, and so oftentimes they don't. And so that's why if you suspect abuse, you have to report it. It's not something, you don't want to leave it up to the kid. And you certainly, don't want to just think, oh, I don't know if I should get involved. What if it's not abuse and the kid ends up getting removed from the home? Well, I think that it's worth it, just because you could save a child's life. I could save a child's life by making the proper phone call and getting help for that child, right? So important that somebody look in on it to make sure that it's not abuse, and just to make sure that that child is safe and whatnot. And, because if there's, most child abuse cases are unreported. The only ones we hear about are the ones that are reported, and the rest is all unreported. And so who knows how many cases there are out there every day that are just not reported, because the amount that are reported is just mind-boggling. So that's why we have to really do the right thing for these children, right? And it says here, psychological first aid. I'll just continue on here. Psychological first aid, or helping to reduce anxiety by listening and reassuring the family, is critical to the establishment of rapport. This requires hours of listening in the part of crisis workers. Psychological first aid may also be a one-time intervention offered by neighbors, relatives, churches, or helping agencies that provide money, food, housing, or transportation. Although this support system is extremely important in the overall crisis response, it does not teach clients to problem solve, and in fact may leave the clients to struggle with repetitive crisis. If possible, crisis workers need to persuade community support systems to stay involved with the family after the initial crisis period, going well beyond the psychological first aid stage. Establishment of consistent friendships and other community supports can help avert future crisis. So yeah, that's just it. Families have a support outside of the CPS, and then it's just so much better because they have, the more support, the better. That's what I think, right? I mean, in any case, my parents had moved down from Canada. They moved down with six children, and then my mom had two more that were stillborn, and then I came along, and so they had been down were in New Mexico for 4 years, and then I was born, and so they hadn't been there that long. They had a few friends, but not many. They were having marital problems at the time, the whole time. So their lives were already in a downward spiral by the time I came along, and I talked quite a bit about that in my other blog talk shows and stuff. So they had some support from neighbors, but they never ever reached out to get community support or get help from community-based providers who could help them, right? And so that's the problem. They didn't trust people. They didn't want people to know about their marital problems, first of all. And my mom would not get help, and she told me that she did try. She wanted to get a divorce up here in Canada before they moved down in the 1940-something. And because I don't remember exactly what date she told me, it was 1940 something. And she said she went to court, and the judge told her, well, if there's no infidelity, then you cannot divorce. And since neither one of them had been, unloyal to each other and unfaithful, they were just abusive towards each other. The courts didn't care about the abuse, and my mom told them. My mom told the courts about the abuse on the children and on her, and the court said, well, that doesn't matter because it's the only way you can get divorced is if there's infidelity there. And so my mom was stuck in this situation. And then in the 60s, when they moved to New Mexico, by that time, 20 years later, her whole mental stability was really in a bad shape. She was in a bad way. And so, people kept telling her to leave my dad, and she wouldn't do it. And over the years, I mean, I know my brothers did, and when I got older, I did too. And because this was still going on, some 40, 30 years later, it's just crazy what happens in families. I know it. I've seen it firsthand, and it's really hard on families. I just wish people would reach out and get some help. And we all deserve to have a good life. And if a marriage isn't working, your children, it's not going to work for your children. And if there's abuse between the two married people, whether it doesn't matter what gender they are, partners, whatever. It's not good on the children. It's not good for the children to grow up around that, right? And then, because a lot of the times the abuse escalates to the children, and that's what happened in our case. My dad really felt that his children did not respect him and did not love him, so he was physically abusive to my brothers especially, and to me a little bit too. But my mom really took her anger out on me. And it's unfortunate that happened, and you can't go back and change it, and so you have to make sense of it. And it is difficult for families, for sure. That's why I just wish everybody would reach out and get some help before they hurt their children. That's so important, As adults, you have the choice, and you can make the right choice to not hurt your children. Just like me, I don't have any children, but it would be my choice to not hurt my child. And so I hope everybody makes the right choice and not take their anger and their own personal problems out on their children. It's just so important. So we have about a minute left. I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and you can check their website out. I'm happy about that, let me tell you. www.dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com, and you can check out their website. They have great information on how to report child abuse, which to me is so important. There's steps that you need to take because you can ruin a case for a child if you don't know how to report it properly. And I have a book out. It's called A Life of Death, The Redemption by Lori Ann Smith. It's on Lulu, and you can find it at www.lulu.com/content/paperback-book, and then /a-life-of-death, right? Just like that, The Redemption, 8500324. And you can get a hold of me if you'd like to find out more about how to get a hold of a copy. All the proceeds from this book are going to Dreamcatchers for Abused Children to further the education, the awareness, and the prevention of child abuse work that's being done. And that makes me happy. It's my wish, and they're honoring it, so that makes me so happy. And I hope you can pick up a copy. It is my story, and it details my life, and all the way up to today. And so I thank you so much for your support. I'll be back on tomorrow morning, 5:30, same time. One child abuse survivor to another, 5:30 tomorrow morning. And we'll just continue on with this article. We'll look at rehabilitative crisis intervention and overview of teams related to CPS. So take care, everybody. Have a great day. My heart is with you, and just keep reaching out. You know, we do matter, we do count, and we do deserve to have a good life. So just hang in there. Don't give up. Just keep moving forward at your own pace. And, I mean, keep reaching out. It's so worth it. So we'll talk to you later. Take care. Have a great day.